Good morning. My name is Kathy Cortez, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. We welcome you this morning, whether you've been coming since before man walked on the moon, or you're here for the very first time. You are welcome whether you're here in person or watching online. For those of you on site, we invite you to come across the hall after the service for coffee and conversation. Unitarian Universalism is a faith tradition that gathers wisdom and inspiration from many sources, and we hold love at the center of our faith. Welcome as we find respite from the darkness of the world outside in this beautiful space inside, and we find joy and comfort in the light of community, in the beauty of the music, in the telling of the stories, and in the wisdom of the pulpit. Our worship team today is led by our senior minister, Reverend John Morehouse, our director of Learning and Family Ministries, Dawn Starr Saras-Borschelt, and our worship associate, Deborah McKnight. The music today is under the direction of our music director, David Brown, accompanied by Jody Brown on piano, Caitlin Watterson, soprano, along with our wonderful choir. And special thanks to our great AV team. MLUC is a busy place on Sundays and throughout the week. There are lots and lots of activities going on in the month of December, so please look at the list on the back of the order of service or check out the calendar on the website. For now, please silence your phones and join me in our unison affirmation. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith.
The wassail through Our chalice lighting today is called Still There Is Hope by Nadine McSpadden. During our darkest moments, still there is hope. When facing our biggest challenges, still there is hope. When all we can do is put one foot in front of the other, still there is hope. When we can't find the way out, still there is hope. When all we can do to help is to hold someone's hand as they cry, still there is hope. We are the hope for ourselves and for one another. Always there is hope. Please stand in body or spirit to sing hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit.
This Once, long ago, two friends named Musa and Naguib set out on a journey together. They walked across the desert, sharing food, stories, and laughter. But as happens with friends, one day they argued. In anger, Naguib struck Musa. Musa was hurt and saddened, but he made a choice not to let the moment end their friendship. Instead, he knelt down and wrote in the sand, "Today my best friend hurt me." Naguib was surprised. He thought Musa might walk away forever, but the two continued on together. Later in their journey, they came to an oasis. While they were bathing, Musa slipped into the water and nearly drowned. Naguib quickly pulled him to safety, saving his life. And this time, Musa picked up a sharp stone and carved into a rock nearby, "Today my best friend saved my life." Naguib was puzzled. "When I hurt you, you wrote in the sand, but when I saved you, you carved it in the stone. Why?" Musa smiled. "When someone hurts us, we can choose to write it in the sand so that the winds of time may wash it away. But when someone helps us, we should carve it in stone so it is never forgotten." And the two friends continued their journey with hope, knowing that they could always begin again in love. We are all affected by things other people do. And we all have choices about how we respond to the things other people do. Sometimes we can choose to let go of the harm others do and hold on to how they have helped us. And other times we may not be able to do that yet. I'd like to invite children and youth to their classes. Join me in the atrium and we'll figure out where you belong.
December's offering outreach goes to the Ministerial Discretionary Fund. Disbursements from this fund are used to assist individuals in need of emergency or critical assistance, community organizations, and other UU churches with unforeseen needs. The fund is entirely supported by donations from members and friends. It has been used for such needs as rent assistance, prescriptions, food, utilities, and other unforeseen emergency expenses. It is a lifeline to members of our congregation and the larger community. To make a cashless donation, whether watching remotely or from here in the sanctuary, please follow the instructions on the screen or on the back page of the order of service. The offering will now be gratefully received. Will the ushers please come forward?
Johann Sebastian Bach composed 205 cantatas, of which 200 are sacred. 5 are secular, and one of them is the famous coffee cantata. So as we were reflecting on addiction, it occurred to me that we could present a section, an aria from the coffee cantata, because in 18th century Germany, caffeine addiction was a serious thing. And as we were playing this, although we've performed it before, it occurred to me that I think the violin plays the role of caffeine. You'll know why.
At this time in the service, it is our custom to share personal joys and sorrows, expecting to be heard, accepted, and supported. As a community, we acknowledge each joy or sorrow by lighting a candle and saying together, "We hold you in our hearts." Barbara Turman lights a candle of concern for her mother, Shiana Kuhn, who suffered a stroke early Friday morning. Barbara and Jess are in Maryland this weekend providing comfort and support. For Shiana, Jess, and Barbara, we hold you in our hearts. We light a candle of concern for Linda Farr. Craig has shared that she is in Phoenixville Hospital with complications concurrent with her pneumonia infection. For Linda and Craig, we hold you in our hearts. Jeanette and Jamie Wheeler light a candle of joy to commemorate so many lovely moments with Nancy Day, who recently died after a beautiful life as mother to 7 children. They all came from near and far to say goodbye to her. Nancy lived at the Quadrangle for 35 years. She was a bright, caring soul who gave much of herself to help others. Her service will be held here at MLUC on January 3rd at noon. For Jeanette, Jamie, Nancy Day, and her family, we hold you in our hearts. Let's see. And we have a joy, 2 birthdays. Sam Wright is 10 years old on December 3rd, and Emma is 7 years old today. For the Wright family, we hold you in our hearts. Oh, and let us light one more candle for those of us with joys or sorrows too deep to say out loud at this time. We hold you in our hearts.
Please rise. Be seated. When we were planning this service, we just couldn't resist that. I'm sorry. It's just. I hope for those of you who don't drink coffee, you don't feel alienated in any way. Tea, herbal, otherwise, is always welcome here as well. We are a people of many faiths. My mother, of beloved memory, died quite suddenly at the age of 73. My father, who loved her, however imperfectly, was quite lost. They had been married for 60 years. He had come to live near our home in Maryland after her death. We bought a ramshackle little house and spent time renovating it. I would check on him from time to time just to see how he was. And one day I noticed he looked quite gaunt. He was losing weight. I came by the house the next day to see how he was doing, and I found him barely conscious on the couch. I got him up, I drove him to the hospital. The emergency room did a blood test and admitted him immediately. His white blood cell count was through the roof, and he was anemic, it was clear. The doctors spent the next several hours trying to figure out what was wrong. The primary doctor, our primary doctor, a good friend and a member of the congregation we were serving at the time, pulled me aside to tell me that this was quite serious and that they weren't actually sure if he was going to make it. I knew this phenomena, especially among men, when a spouse dies. The grief and the lack of self-care can often lead to the surviving spouse following quite closely behind in the coming months. Now, when this was happening to my own dad, so soon after my mother had gone, we realized now how painful this was. The doctor pulled me aside after another hour of waiting there, and she said, are you sure your father doesn't drink? I said, what? Who told you that? He did, she said. I said, are you kidding me? He drinks like a fish. In fact, both my mother and father were what we would now term as functional alcoholics. They would down 3 or 4 double scotches each night before a gigantic meal with wine at 10 p.m. They used to both drink bourbon 3 or 4 doubles a night, but then the doctor told them the sugar content was too high, so they switched to scotch. I told all this to the doctor, and she said, well, that explains it then. He's probably dying of alcohol poisoning. It turned out that my father, in his grief, was drinking close to a quart of scotch each day and living on Wonder Bread and jelly sandwiches. That, coupled with the flu, brought him to death's door. The doctor went back in to see him, ordered some new tests and some treatment, and then she left. And then I decided I need to go in and talk to my father and let him know that it would be all right. And I remember this conversation very clearly because it was one of the most difficult I've ever had in my life. Not just as a minister, but as his son. Dad, I said, I know you're heartbroken after losing Mom. We're all carrying around these broken hearts. But you have a choice here, Dad. You can choose to leave your body and be with her again, as I believe, or you can just keep on living. You can keep on living for me and for my brother, for our daughters-in-law and our beautiful and strong granddaughters. You can keep living for walks in the woods with the dogs, for justice, to write, to agitate, to feel the sun on your face, perhaps to laugh and dance. It will hurt for a while, Dad, but the pain will subside. And where there will always be a hole in your heart for where she was, your grief now will bring a depth and richness to your life, such as you have never known. I know this is true, Dad, I told him, because I've seen it happen over and over again. You can choose to stop drinking and start living, and I want you to choose life. There was a foreboding silence as he contemplated this. My father was a very proud man. He had been shamed as he saw it, and I wasn't sure how he was going to respond to this. But finally, after what seemed like 5 minutes, which was actually probably less than a minute, he said, okay, I'll do that, but I never want to see that doctor again. That's fine, Dad. We'll find another doctor. I tell you this story because I know that almost everyone in this room and online has been touched by an addiction. Perhaps not directly to you or even to your family, but you know someone who has been. As Gerald May said in his beautiful book, Addiction and Grace, we suffer from all kinds of addictions, to ideas, to work, relationships, to power, to shyness, depression, cynicism, anxiety, fear, and anger. People, he said, can become addicted to success, to illness, to control, to fantasies. And any number of those substances and behaviors mask the pain and drive the addiction further, right? This can be the stress of living, but it can get out of hand. Food and sex and alcohol and drugs and gambling. The list is long. I believe that many of us have at least a propensity to some addictions within us. We are coping with a life that is difficult and complicated, and the power of a substance or a behavior to mask that is extremely inviting. It has as much to do with the chemistry in our brains as it does with the patterns of behavior itself and the society in which we live, which, at least in its consumerism, can clearly be seen as highly addictive. Addictions become a problem when they interfere with our lives and lead to a ruin of life. It's then that we need the most help. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot in the last several days, and I want to differentiate passion, bordering on obsession, as something different than addiction. Because passion is that thing that drives creativity. It's that thing that drives love itself. It can become an addiction, but it is not by its nature addictive. I don't want to deaden passion in our lives, but I do want to hold up the fact that addiction is real. The shame around addiction, as I learned from my father, is its most insidious dimension. So today, friends, as if we didn't have enough to do, I'm asking for those who are interested to join me in starting something I'm calling the Addiction and Recovery Ministry, a team of people to help educate the rest of us on addiction and recovery and provide resources for those who are facing addiction. Now, I want to be clear, this is not a 12-step group. We have 12-step groups. In fact, there's one that meets here every Friday evening. I watch as the cars pile up in the parking lot. There are resources out there which you may not know are available to help you or help someone you know or love. I'm seeing this as a team to help us educate one another and help us respond to the issues that come with addictions, especially, friends, in these apocalyptic times in which we live, right? And I'm hoping that we'll be able to adopt as our motto for this team the phrase, "You are not alone," because you are not alone. I decided to launch this ministry now in the busy holiday season for several reasons. The first is that addiction is its most dangerous in this darkest season of the year. Days are short, nights are long. Attempted suicides or death by suicides are the highest, statistically the highest in December. And addiction, whether it ends your life now or later, will always end the brilliance of life itself. The theme for this month of December, this Advent month up to Christmas and solstice, is choosing hope. I choose the issue of addiction to bring hope to life, sunshine into a darkened room. For hope, I think, can be realized in our striving for a better self, a better world, a hope for a new time. Hope cannot exist as some abstract ideal. It has to be materialized in some way. There has to be a reason to do what we do. Now, we're facing so much right now, right? So much that we see every day in the news, and there are these crises which are sort of running parallel with one another. The one that you may have heard about because it's been going on for some years is the opioid crisis in America. Primarily, white men without a college degree, not always, but mostly, are at risk for opioid overdose, or for other what is known as diseases of despair, overeating, diabetes, strokes, heart attacks. These are all people who are often rooted in communities that they've known their entire lives, who are without work, without a way to move forward. And these deaths are the result of losing that hope. The election of Donald Trump is a symptom of this, not its manifestation. And hopelessness and desperation for something to bring back meaning to life, however misplaced and hard it is for people to accept and understand who are on the other side, is what people are looking for. And my friends, I think we are living through an addiction to anger. An addiction to anger. Part of what is driving our civil erosion is how addicted to anger we have become. Social media has accelerated this trend, but so has popular culture. 10 years ago, 70% of new pop songs had the word love in it. Today, 32% have the word love in it. And our congregation is not immune to this. Slights, real, imagined, they find rich soil in incomplete truths. This has to stop. Are you with me on this? We have to assume that better people are out there and they are us. We are the better people we've been waiting for. And even our almost religious love of coffee, that's an addiction, right? It's perhaps not as insidious as some, although I've met plenty of people who really don't speak until they've had a cup of coffee. It has that mythic quality, the alliteration. Join us for coffee and conversation across the hall. So welcoming. It's not conversation and sparkling water. No. And one of our most beloved concert series is Jazz and Jazz and Joe. It's about coffee. I served a small fellowship in central Indiana when I was in seminary, and they met in an unused basement of a Baptist church. Not knowing where to store their coffee urn and supplies each week, the group put it behind a small curtain on a little stage in the back of the room. I happened to stop by during the week to pick up some notes I'd left there, and I had met the pastor, a wonderful older man, and we were chatting away as he led me downstairs to look for the notes, and we were looking for the notes, and he looks behind the curtain, and there is a coffee urn sitting on a high stool. And he says, "Oh my heavens, you do worship a coffee pot." The theologian Walter Brueggemann noted in his beautiful book, Materiality is Resistance, that we're also addicted to acquisition. I don't know if my facts are entirely true here, but I believe now the King of Prussia Mall is the largest mall in America. That ought to say something about how close to Mordor we are. We are very close. And Black Friday is called that because it's the last day of the year when most stores turn the red ink of a negative balance sheet to positive black. But I ask you, positive for whom? Not us. You want to know what the third highest growth sector in the American economy is right now? Storage units. Well over 20% year-over-year growth in storage units. Places to store our stuff. They even made a television show out of it. It's a reality show of storage units. Yeah, right? You know what I'm talking about. So you go in there, and they open up the door, and you look in, somebody's left, or they didn't pay their bill, or they died, or whatever, and they left all this stuff, and it's just a big room full of junk and stuff, and you look in and you peer around. You're not allowed to go in, you're not allowed to touch anything, okay? And then the auctioneer starts, and you try to decide how much you're going to bid for that room of junk. And sometimes you win the bid, and you just find amazing treasures in there, and what a return on investment. And most of the time, it's just junk. Places to store our stuff. I know that some of you are going through the process of downsizing. Well, that's a lot of fun. You've been spending 40, 50 years in the same house, raised perhaps a family there, and boy, do you have a lot of stuff, right? And now you got to get rid of all that stuff. And one of the things that you learn right away is that your kids don't really want your porcelain or your crystal or your sterling silver. They don't want any of that stuff. They got their own stuff. Here's the tip. You can give away all your stuff and you'll still have enough stuff. We try to convince ourselves that this craziness is somehow normal. But we've created an entire media around these, I call them addictions. How many of you have MSNBC, or I don't know how they rebranded themselves, or some of you may have Fox News, I don't know, all the time, right? Waiting for the next and latest outrage. And are primarily liberal, but not always response to it, right? And we just get angry about it. How many of you beloveds think Rachel Maddow is a saint? When I was a younger man, a friend told me he couldn't find his stash of LSD. So he asked his grandmother if she'd seen the little tabs. And she said no, but have you seen the dragon in the kitchen? The news has become our dragon in the kitchen. Letting the news of the day somehow feed us like a sugar, like a rush, like an adrenaline. And, we're supposed to stay in touch, right? We don't want to be a chump. But we border on cynicism when we do that. We border on cynicism when all we're trying to do is find the latest thing to be upset about. And bless you, Unitarian Universalists, I love you, but reading a book about how bad it is and then sitting around and having a discussion about it is not going to change the world. Now, today, after this service, we have a book that talks about how bad it is, but they have solutions on how to change the world. And that's the difference. Gerald May wrote, spiritually, addiction is a deep-seated form of idolatry. The objects of our addictions become false gods. Those are the things that we worship, that we attend to. Take it from someone like me who was very addicted to anger and rage. It took a long time to get rid of that. Addictions displace and supplement love for something else, for anger, for something that's not going to work. It's a counterfeit spiritual presence, if you will. It is written in Ecclesiastes, I denied my eyes nothing that they desired, refused my heart no pleasure. What futility it all was. What chasing after the wind. The grace of each other, the grace of our community is choosing hope. It's the power to vanquish these addictions, these dragons. So, beloveds, I'm inviting you to join together with me in a shelter before the wind. And if you know someone who is wounded by addictions, either directly or indirectly, or you yourself, come into the shelter of our arms. Come and learn that there is help here. Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. And the second line, so Rumi's poem is, even though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come yet again, come. My father recovered from his illness, stopped drinking cold turkey, never attended a 12-step program in his life, said he'd be rather caught dead. He went on to live a rich and full life. He married again, he wrote, he protested, he laughed, he danced. And he had one glass of wine on his 80th birthday, content until he died at the age of 83. We are not alone, friends. Truly, we are not. We are held together in a communion, in a bowl of love and support. So now I'm going to invite you, if you've been touched by addiction or know someone who's been touched, to come forward and place a rock crystal in a bowl of water, our water, dissolving the salt, becoming the love of our community, a sacred vessel of love. Now, you can't come down the center aisle because the dais is here, but what I'm suggesting is you come down what is your left far aisle and go out on the right far aisle. and we're going to take some time for this ritual, as much in silence as you can, and there will be some music playing. Let us begin. Blessed is that bowl which represents the love of our community, the bitterness of the salt from each of our lives, blended and dissolving into the love that is ours. Let's join together in our closing hymn, which is number 1015, I Know I Can. Please rise and body your spirit. In the words of my colleague Michelle Collins, from this place, friends, go knowing that hope is not a certainty but a choice. That when the world offers you despair, choose possibility. When cynicism seems reasonable, choose engagement. May our hope be grounded in love and expressed through our action. And may we return here when you need to find the courage to choose again. Now the service truly begins, my friends. Please be seated for the postlude.
Christmas is here, bring me the cheer.
I'm a Presbyterian pastor. Yeah. From